Hello everyone, Georgia Ramblin' Man here. It is Saturday, June the 10th, and it's a really nice day here. Checked the weather report before I left home this morning. 0% chance of rain, and I hope that's true because I forgot my rain gear. I took the bag out of my saddlebag the other day just to check on it. And I set it down in the garage and then put it back in my saddlebag, so I am hoping it does not rain today. But it's a really nice day. It's in the 70s this morning. It's about 10:30 now, I think, and it's going to get up in the 80s. A little bit humid, but couldn't ask for better weather. And even better, I'm on the first day of my vacation, so I am super excited to be out riding today. Actually decided to take a ride up to visit my father today in Rome, Georgia, where my parents still live. He's had some health issues lately, and he's getting up there in years. He's 86 years old now, and you know, I try to see him as much as I can. I know I'll see him next weekend for Father's Day, but there'll be a lot of people there, and you know, I thought today I could ride up there. It's a nice day to ride. Spend a little one-on-one time with him. I think he'll get a kick out of that. He doesn't even know I'm coming. So I'm going to just roll into their driveway and surprise them. Last time I went up there and visited them, I pulled into their neighborhood. My mom was pulling in front of me, and I pulled behind her and pulled into the driveway behind her, and she didn't know I was coming. And I pulled up next to her, and she says, "Oh my goodness, I thought I was getting pulled over by a motorcycle policeman." She said, "I thought I was speeding." I said, "No, you're good." Anyway, I'm taking the back roads up to Rome today. I'm getting ready to go through the little small town of Waleska, Georgia, which is very small. Not much in this little town, but a college. Reinhardt University is here, and it's a pretty good sized little small liberal arts college. But I'm coming into Waleska right now. Nice little southern town. And then there's a really nice two-lane road out through the country. Kind of goes along a creek and winds its way up towards Rome, where my parents live. So very nice road. There's a lot of motorcycles ride this road, and you can see a couple coming right here. I tell you, these roads out here, though, have a lot of these tar snakes on them where they've sealed the asphalt over the years. You know, these roads don't get a lot of traffic, and they don't get repaved often. And in the summer, I tell you, I'm a little nervous sometimes on these roads when I'm leaning into the curves on these roads that are full of these tar snakes. I went around one time, and it was the middle of the summer, and I could feel my back end slipping just a little bit as I went over a couple of them, and it kind of gave me the willies there. Anyway, I'm going to be turning right up here at the stop sign, headed towards Adairsville through the big city of Pine Log. There's the university right there. Pretty nice college. Anyway, I was in Seattle this week. I had to take a quick trip to Seattle. I got a couple of projects out there, a couple of nice clients. I actually saw 2 projects in one day, and then it was just too late to get the last flight of the afternoon home, which I usually take. And you know, leave Seattle about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, get into Atlanta about, I don't know, 11:30 at night. You know, you lose 3 hours coming west to east. So I just didn't have time. I just, you know, had too much to do on Thursday to be able to take that 3 o'clock flight. So I said, you know, I got 2 choices here. I can either just go get a hotel, go out and have a nice dinner, maybe do a little work and go home the next day, or I can go to the airport, turn my car in, and hang around the airport and take the red-eye home. And the red eye that I was able to get on, which is what I decided to do. Left Seattle at 11:45 at night Pacific time. Got back home into Atlanta at 7:30 in the morning. You know, when I was younger, I'd take they call those the red eye flights for good reason. When I was younger, I could take those flights, get an hour or two sleep maybe on the plane, and just go right to work. As I've gotten a little older, that's a little more difficult. But I wanted to get home. I knew my vacation was coming, and I didn't want to waste another day traveling. So I got to the airport. I had all intentions of sitting up and opening my computer and doing a little bit of work. You know what? My heart just wasn't into it. And so I started doing what I do a lot of times when I have a little time. I just started kind of looking at some YouTube videos of all you guys that I follow. Saw some great videos, and you know, I hadn't been at this all that long, so there's some videos you guys have done, you know, a year or so ago that I still haven't seen, so I go back and watch them. And I happened to see one that NC Stoney did, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, where he kind of gave a short kind of history of his work and how he got to where he is today, what he does for a living. You know, not really motorcycle related, but you know, it's good to be able to get to know everyone. I kind of feel like we're friends on here, and it's good to kind of know what people do for a living and how they got where they are. And so I thought I would do the same thing. As actually, as I was watching NC Stoney's story, I mean, we have a lot of parallels, actually. Anyway, to start it off, I guess, you know, I got a job as soon as I could when I was 16 years old. I had just saved up all my lawn mowing money that I had made as a 13, 14, 15-year-old. Got my driver's license when I was 16 years old in 1972. And I got I bought myself a 1962 Volkswagen Bug. Red. I love that car. It's a piece of junk, but I love that car. Paid $435 for it. And I had to have gas money and various things, so I got myself a job at the local grocery store in Rome, where I grew up, where I was living at the time. And I bagged groceries for a couple of years. And you know, I got a job when I was 16, and except for a couple of semesters in college, I have been employed continuously since I was 16 years old, and that was 1972. So I did that for a couple of years. And the minimum wage in 1972, when I started at this grocery store, was $1.65 an hour, and that's what I made. And I worked there for about a year and a half. And during my senior year in high school, I went to a high school in a little town right next to Rome called Shannon, Georgia, and it was not really a city. It's what they more referred to it as a village, because what it was a little village that grew up around a textile mill, a cotton mill, and it had various names over the years, Klopman Mills, but when I was in high school, it was operated by Burlington Industries, just a regular old textile mill. And a lot of the kids I went to high school lived in that village. Their parents had worked at that mill, their grandparents had worked at that mill. I mean, it was a family thing. And, you know, back in the day, the textile mills around the South were pretty common. Not today, they've all moved out, but anyway, I was working at the grocery store, and one of my friends, I'm still friends with, and I'm going to see him down in South Florida in a couple of weeks. His father was, I think, in the personnel department there at the mill. And Russell, my friend, told me, he says, hey, you know, you should get a job at the mill. You know, you can make a lot more money than you're making at that grocery store. And I was making about $1.85, maybe almost $2 an hour at the grocery store. And so I went and checked it out, and I could make like $3.75 an hour at this cotton mill. So I immediately made a career change from sacking groceries to being a yarn dumper. That was my title at the cotton mill. And I worked there through my senior year, and then in the summer after I got out of high school, and I'll tell you, I worked second shift, 4 to midnight, and that was hard work. That was a factory. It was a cotton mill. There was no union there. It was hot. It was noisy. And I'm telling you, that was hard work. And I love these roads around here from Waleska to Rome. They are some nice twisty roads. And I wish this truck with this washing machine wasn't in front of me. But anyway, that was hard work, and I tell you, that gave me a whole new appreciation for, you know, people that work these factory jobs. You know, it was, you know, the work week was 6 days a week. It was a 48-hour work week. That was what you worked. Now, by that time, they had overtime laws, and the, you know, that extra 8 hours that you worked a week, you got time and a half for it, which was nice. But, you know, inevitably, I'd work there, and somebody would call in, and for the next shift wouldn't be there, and I'd work another 4 hours, or they'd call me in early. And so anyway, I really had no clue what I was going to do when I got out of high school. I hadn't really thought about it too much. And I remember I was kind of a sports crazy kid at the time. And I went and told my dad, I said, you know, I think I'm going to go to college. I think I'm going to major in journalism because I'd like to write. And I'm going to be a sports writer. I'm going to be like the newspaper guy that covers the baseball team, that travels with a team. And I thought, man, what a great job is that? You know, have a job and go see baseball games and write about them every day. That's got to be the life. Well, that went over with my dad like a lead balloon. He was not happy about that choice. You know, he said, you're not going to be able to support a family on that. You know, maybe you'll get a job with some major newspaper someday, but maybe you'll be stuck working here at the Rome News Tribune, you know, covering school board meetings on a Tuesday night, and it'll be boring as everything, and you won't make any money, and you won't be able to support your family. And you know, pleasing my father was something that was pretty important to me. So I kind of put that on the back burner, and I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I mean, I got to my senior year, spring of my senior year, and I had no clue. And I was always pretty good in math and science, and so, you know, some of my teachers started steering me to more technical fields like science and engineering. And I was okay with that. I wasn't thrilled with it. And then when a family friend of ours, he worked at a paper mill in Rome, which is Kraft Paper Company, which, you know, Rome at the time had textile mills and a paper mill. He heard I was interested in maybe in engineering, and he said, look, you know, Kraft Paper, we employ chemical engineers all the time, and we have this scholarship program at North Carolina State University in Raleigh in pulp and paper science, and we'll give you a scholarship to go there and give you guaranteed summer jobs and a guaranteed job when you graduate, and if you go one more semester you can get a chemical engineering degree and you'll be set for life. And I said, you know what, that sounds pretty good. So I signed up for it, had this scholarship, and was kind of planning on going to North Carolina State, which was kind of far from home. Never been to North Carolina in my life, I don't think. But that summer, before I went, I didn't work at the paper mill, but I went with him to the paper mill one day and took a tour of it. And I spent about an hour in that paper mill, and I came home and told my parents, there is no way that I'm going to work in a paper mill. And my dad says, yeah, but you're going to be like an engineer. And I said, you know what? No way. I'm not going to work in a paper mill. I said, this cotton mill's bad enough. I think this paper mill's worse. So I turned down the scholarship, and a friend of mine was going to Georgia Tech, and he had an alumni that was going to take him for a visit to Georgia Tech, show him around. And he says, hey, you want to go just look around? And I'd never really thought about Georgia Tech. You know, good engineering school right here in the state of Georgia. So I went with him. And we toured the school, and I went around, and, you know, we went over to the civil engineering school, and I thought, you know, this is pretty cool stuff. And really on just a whim, I said, you know what, I think I'll go to Georgia Tech and I'll major in civil engineering. You know, I think about my whole career and how long it's been and how I got to where I am now, and as an 18-year-old kid, just on a little afternoon trip, okay, I think I'll do this. And it affected the rest of my life. And, you know, sometimes I think, you know, you have to make some pretty big decisions early in your life when it comes to what you're going to do for a job, and, you know, where you might want to go to school, or what kind of training you want to get, or, you know, who you're going to marry. You make a lot of decisions early in your life when you're young and you don't really know what you're doing. But anyway, off to Georgia Tech I went. And I tell you, that was the best, some of the best years of my life. I loved going to school there. I loved the civil engineering department. I loved everything about it, and really had a great time. I went into a program they have there called a co-op program, where you work a semester, go to school a semester, and so pretty much 6 months of the year you're working, and 6 months of the school year you're going to school. It takes you an extra year to get out, but it gives you a lot of valuable work experience. It gave me some money, so I did that. And I worked for the L&N Railroad Company, the Louisville and Nashville Railroad Company, on their surveying crew. It really was their engineering department, but it was pretty much a surveying crew. And that was a blast. I mean, we would travel all over the Southeast. And I worked in Atlanta, I worked in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I worked up in Kentucky for a while. And we would just go around, and when a new factory would be built, we would do the surveying for the new tracks that would go to it, and we would just, we were outside, and it was great. I loved that. But when I got out of Tech, I didn't really want to stay with the railroad. So I went and got a job with an architect engineer firm in St. Louis, Missouri as a structural engineer. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. I wanted to be in an office, you know, sit at a drafting table or a desk and be a design engineer. And I did that for a couple of years. I sat there, and this was before personal computers. That kind of dates me a little bit, but I would sit there, my pencil and paper and my calculator and my steel manual and concrete manual, and design structures. And I liked it. But after a couple of years, you know, I was not the type to be sitting at a desk all day. And I just came to where I didn't enjoy it. And we had worked with the Army Corps of Engineers as one of our clients on a project out in California, as designing some work out at Vandenberg Air Force Base. So I went out there for about 6 months and worked with the Corps of Engineers when I was still with this architect engineer firm, kind of helping them out. And I was out in the field. I was out answering questions and solving problems and answering, you know, what our design was, and I really enjoyed that. So on a whim, after a couple of years in St. Louis, I called up the Corps of Engineers in California and said, you guys hiring anybody? I mean, would you hire me? And they said, yeah, you know, this project is still going, and, you know, to have you here full-time working for us, that would be great. So I took a job with the Corps of Engineers, California. My wife and I packed up the old cars and headed west to California. I worked out there for a couple of years. The project shut down and never really finished, but anyway, it's a long story. But it was time to, you know, find another job with the Corps. So I got myself a job in Savannah District back in Georgia. I kind of wanted to get back to Georgia. We'd had a son by then, my first son, and we wanted to get back to Georgia. So I took a job, came back to Warner Robins, Georgia, and worked at Robins Air Force Base, doing construction management, managing construction for the Air Force. And I stayed there for about 14 years. Really enjoyed it. You know, built aircraft hangars and barracks and test facilities and airfields, and got a chance to go overseas and go to Korea, go to Panama. Did a little work on the Panama Canal. You know, for an engineer, that's about as good as it gets. But I was, I was a federal employee, and, you know, I made a good salary, but it wasn't what I felt like I could do better. And And I got the itch kind of in my early 40s to look and do something different. So I looked around and I found this consulting firm in Atlanta. It was basically a construction management firm, facility assessment firm. And they were looking for somebody that did what I did with the Corps, pretty much. So I made the switch and moved to Atlanta. And I've been with this company now for almost 18 years. So I really only had 3 jobs out of college. About 2.5 years with an architect engineer firm, about 16 years with the Army, and then almost 18 years now with this firm. And I started out a project manager, moved up to a senior project manager. Then I moved up to the director of project management, where all the project managers work for me. And then a few years ago, the owner of the firm, he was about 6 or 7 years older than me, maybe 8 years older than me, wanted to retire. He didn't want to sell the firm. I think he probably would have sold the firm if I would have had the money to buy it, which I don't, and I don't really want to do that. Anyway, he wanted to retire. He said, look, I want to retire. It's time for me. I don't really want to do the day-to-day management of this company. I want you to do it. So in 2014, I became president of the company. And, it's like NC Stoney said, I'm not into titles. It's like, people were congratulating me when I got this new title as president. I said, look, this is not like I'm, president of Coca-Cola or Boeing Aircraft or any huge company here. This is, I'm president of a company with 15 people. But I've been doing that the last few years, and I enjoy it. It's a little bit different than just the day-to-day engineering and construction management that I used to do, although I still do a little bit of it. I told the owner when I took this role over, I still want to get out in the field and kind of stay close to the projects and do some of the work myself, just to keep myself up to date and current in front of our clients a little bit. But, most of my work is management related. It's business related. It's running the company. It's the administrative work of making sure the bills are paid and business development, going out there and finding new clients, getting new business, going to conventions and conferences. And like I tell my wife sometimes, I'm at a conference and I'll call her and say, well, I'm getting ready to go to the reception. Yet another reception. I call them a schmooze fest, where you just go around and schmooze with the clients. And you know what, in this business you really have to keep in front of your clients, and our firm is pretty much specialized in the senior living industry, so we go to a lot of different conferences in senior living. And we in fact, my wife and I are going to Portland, Oregon this week for that very purpose. So that's my job. That's what I do now. I've been very blessed, I tell you. I've never been laid off. I've never been fired. Knock on wood, I still got a few more years to go. Could happen any day. And I know in today's economy, you can think you have a job and 5 minutes later you don't. And I like NC Stoney said in his video, his father told him, learn everything you can about the business, make yourself, indispensable. And I took that to heart as well early in my career. And I think that served me well in this job that I've got now. Early on with this company, I was interested in kind of the business development and management side of things early on. And I think the owner of the company saw that. And, I'm a pretty good manager. I don't have a management degree, a business degree. I don't have an MBA or a finance degree or anything like that. But you know what? We have an accountant that takes care of our finances, and I have an office manager that takes care of all the administrative work and making sure the bills are paid. And really, I tell you, the company almost runs itself. We have a lot of good people that have been there a long time, and I tell you, it almost runs itself. It's like I told my wife when I got this job as president. I said, my job is to not run this company in the ground. And I tell you, you think about your career and what defines success, and what motivates you. And I'm going to tell you, I saw an interview one time with a all-star baseball player for the Braves. His name was Chipper Jones. He was a great player for the Braves for a lot of years. And one of the things I asked him one time in this interview was, what motivates you to work so hard and be such a great player? And he said, fear of failure, fear of going out there and just failing. And you know what? That's kind of motivated me. Quick little story here before I sign off. But I was graduating. A good friend of mine. We're sitting there in the auditorium, listening to all the commencement speeches, and we're about ready to get our degrees in civil engineering. Both he and I had gone through school together, and his name is Jim Etherton. He lives out in Texas now, a great guy. But he leaned over and he says, in a few minutes we're going to get a diploma. It says we've got a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. He said, are you really sure what a civil engineer does? And I said, Jim, not totally, no. I guess we'll find out on our first job, huh? He goes, yeah, I hope so. So that's the way it is, and all you young guys out there, my son, just got out of college. One of my sons, my oldest son's been out a while, but, I told him, I said, don't think you know everything the day you get out of college. It's a learning process from day one. And fear of failure is a great motivator. But I've been very, very blessed to have the jobs that I've had. I've worked with great people. I still keep up with a lot of them. Great companies I've worked for, the U.S. Army. I've always felt like, my job meant something. It wasn't strictly just a way to make money. And I have enjoyed it. I always wonder what would have happened if I'd have went to the University of Georgia and majored in journalism, if I'd have been a great sports writer and maybe be on ESPN, who knows. Not much of as big a sports fan as I used to be, so I don't know what I would have done. I'd probably been working for the Rome News Tribune and covering those school board meetings on Thursday nights, like my dad said. Anyway, that's my story. Hope that gives you a little bit of information about me. I'm pulling into the big town of Adairsville, Georgia here. I think I'll take a little break, fuel the old motorcycle up, and take a little break here. Beautiful day. I hope the camera's picking up the nice blue sky and puffy clouds. Hope everybody has a great week. This is Georgia Rambling Man here. Everybody ride safe.